And welcome to the February 11, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. I'm Blandy Miller, Chair of the Commission. As always, I ask everyone today to please be efficient in your comments and avoid redundancy so that we can hear from as many viewpoints on as many cases as possible. We start every meeting with an opportunity for the public to comment on an item not contained on the agenda. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda today? Then, seeing none, we'll move on to committee reports. We have one item under committee reports coming from our Committee of the Whole. This is rezoning case Z3824, covering the area surrounding the Lenovo Center at 1400 Edwards Mill Road at the intersection of Wade Avenue and Edwards Mill Road. Consistent with my previous request, the Committee of the Whole, I am requesting to be recused again today from this case due to the fact that my husband is on the Centennial Authority, which oversees the Lenovo Center and negotiated in part the contract for these surrounding development rights. I believe Commissioner Raines also is requesting to be recused today. Could you state a reason for the record?
Yes, the company I work for is not directly related to this application, but is doing the professional services on the subject property.
Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Vice Chair Bennett.
Thank you, Chair Miller. So we heard this case at our Committee of the Whole meeting, and we voted it out with no recommendation because there were some outstanding issues related to traffic and pedestrian access. We received a full presentation from staff and from the applicant, but I'll ask staff to provide an update.
Good morning, Planning Commission members. Matthew Burns with Planning and Development. So yes, this case last appeared as new business at the Committee of the Whole on January 30th, and the applicant submitted a revised master plan on Friday, January 31st in response to the committee's comments. It added a potential bike lane to sheet 4, which connects the intersection of Peter Carmanos Jr. Drive and Trinity Road to the proposed internal street network. The other master plan sheets and the rezoning application remain unchanged. I'll note that the revisions have not changed the consistency of the rezoning. It remains overall consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the future land use map, and inconsistent with urban form. And your deadline for action is March 31st. Just a reminder, here is the site in West Raleigh. The master plan that you have already reviewed proposes several modifications and clarifications to chapters within the UDO. And the master plan also restricts non-residential square footage and also maximum dwelling units per sub-district. And compared to existing zoning, the request would ultimately result in a decrease in entitlement based on those limits that are imposed. This is just going over the different sub-districts. And instead of going through every master plan sheet, I just put this together. They have a general layout plan, a table of uses, open space plan, pedestrian circulation, and block plan, which is what has changed this time, as well as parking, tree conservation, utilities, generalized stormwater, phasing, and a signage plan. So the change to the master plan sheets that I mentioned are this purple section in purple, which is a new potential bicycle lane that connects Trinity Road near Peter Carmanos Jr. to the internal street network and the Reedy Creek Greenway. The Committee of the Whole had asked for an update on several projects that are happening that are either bike ped related or transportation related. So the first of these I'll go through are the Blue Ridge bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So that's a City of Raleigh project which proposes a multi-use path along Blue Ridge, a pedestrian bridge over I-440 at Wade Avenue, and protected intersection at Reedy Creek Road near North Carolina Museum of Art. Following that, there's also improvements along Edwards Mill Road. The first series is at Edwards Mill and Wade Avenue. So that is a City of Raleigh Vision Zero project, which is done in conjunction with NCDOT. It's a pedestrian project, that would install pedestrian signals, rectangular rapid flashing beacons at crosswalks, reflective backplates on signal heads, and provide a protective left turn lane. And similarly, the improvements proposed at Edwards Mill and Trinity would also provide those. So high visibility crosswalks, retroreflective backplates, and protective left turn lanes. In red on this screen, you see the Triangle Bikeway, which is a Campo project that's currently in the design phase. That is a bikeway running along I-40 and NC-54. Then there are improvements at I-440 and Blue Ridge Road, which would widen 440 to 6 lanes, upgrade interchanges, and includes lowering the grade of Blue Ridge and some new bridges. Finally, there are a couple other NCDOT-related road projects that I figured I would highlight. So there is here in the upper left-hand corner, the Wade Avenue widening, which would add lanes between I-40 and I-440. There here on the lower left in the southwest are I-40 and NC-54 improvements, which would add lanes to the eastbound and westbound off-ramps, as well as install ramp metering. And then here on the lower right, you have Barrel Road crossing, which would extend Barrel Road to Royal Avenue and ultimately close the at-grade rail crossing. So I realize that's a lot. I also included this as a table, which has some more details on when these projects are expected to be complete. So for the most part, they are either under construction or some of them are in the design phase but have not been approved yet. So just to sum up the policy side of the report, the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the future land use maps, designations of public facilities and public parks and open space, and the request is inconsistent with the urban form map. Consistent policies are related to mixed-use centers and mixed-use development, as well as nodal development, institutional growth, and arts and entertainment, including special events and attractions, integrating parks and transportation, and 2 policies that are specific to the Arena Blue Ridge Plan. Inconsistent policies are largely related to pedestrian and bicycle mobility, infrastructure, and urban design, which is related to the urban form considerations for the site. So your deadline for action is March 31st, and at this point, the only outstanding issue is that a TIA is currently under review by NCDOT and Raleigh staff, and we are expecting additional transportation recommendations from that study. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. We received public comment at our Committee of the Whole meeting. Are there members of the public here who wish to speak on this case, either for or against? I see one. Are there others? Okay. We'll need to discuss here, adding additional time. Would the commissioners be amenable to adding an additional 3 minutes per side? So without objection, I will add an additional 3 minutes to those in support and an additional 3 minutes to those opposed. So when you come up, just please state your name and whether you're for or against, so we can keep the time allocated properly.
Yeah, Good morning. My name's Tim Thronson. I'm the chair of the Cardinal Gibbons Board. And I appreciate the opportunity you've given us to express our concerns about the Lenovo rezoning case. I want to be clear up front. We support the existing development and its potential. However, as stewards of these 1,600 young lives that we've got at Cardinal Gibbons, we have urgent concerns about the safety issues around the development that we believe must be addressed. And you see, we have some of the contingent here this morning of the 1,600 students and our parent and our entire community. The most critical issue before us is pedestrian safety. This area is already dangerous for pedestrians. There are inadequate sidewalks, no safe crossings, and minimal protection measures. To date, there has been absolutely no safe plan presented for pedestrian access from outside the development, and in particular, from the Edwards Mills side of the development. As currently designed, the only way to safely reach this development from Cardinal Gibbons High School and many areas west and southwest of Gibbons is by car. We believe that adding significant density to an area that's already hazardous for pedestrians will create an unacceptable level of risk for the members of our community. The stakes are especially high for our student community. Our juniors and seniors will naturally access the development throughout the school day during lunch and free periods. Our freshmen and sophomores will be drawn to the entertainment district outside of the school hours. Without safe pedestrian infrastructure, particularly a critical overpass or underpass across Edwards Mill Road, we are creating an extremely dangerous situation for our students who will inevitably walk to this destination. Construction traffic adds another significant layer of risk if not properly managed. And we believe that the parking situation needs to be addressed as well. Currently, the Lenovo Arena's parking capacity is inadequate, as demonstrated by the fact that we regularly and involuntarily accommodate overflow parking during the hockey games. We also support North Carolina State football parking in a cooperative and mutually beneficial arrangement. Yet the proposed development maintains the same number of parking spaces while significantly increasing density. The resultant parking shortage will force more people to park elsewhere and attempt dangerous pedestrian crossings. We don't believe this is sustainable. The accelerated timeline of this process has left crucial safety questions unanswered with little or no time to study the plans. As a matter of fact, we've not been able to get a copy of the TIA after having requested it from several sources. Now for the needs and asks. We strongly support the construction of Wade Avenue frontage collector distributor road. As a matter of fact, we believe it's critical for the frontage road to be built as it would significantly help but not solve traffic and safety issues on Edwards Mill Road. We respectfully request that several critical pedestrian safety measures be required as a condition of the rezoning.
Would the commission be amenable to adding an additional 2 minutes
Thank you.
to the time, the total time for each side?
There's one other, we have one other speaker.
Just be mindful that you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Now for the needs and the asks. We respectfully request that several critical pedestrian safety measures be required as a condition of rezoning approval. First, a comprehensive safety plan that includes safe crossing over Edwards Mill Road at Stephen Stroud Way via an underpass or an overpass. This is crucial. Well-marked and controlled crosswalks, connected sidewalk networks around the entire development. We also need an overall pedestrian and bicycle access plan for the entire site. We'd also need a traffic impact analysis that includes pedestrian safety assessment. We need an emergency evacuation plan that considers pedestrian movement. We need a plan for physical security and crowd management. We'd like developer participation in the required safety improvements at Cardinal Gibbons High School, including gated entryways, fenced around the property, entrance to Cardinal Gibbons parking on Trinity Road, and safety officers. We need a traffic management plan for overlapping events along with a full-time coordinator. We need a coordinated plan for construction traffic. We need a review of the TIA annually along with a build-out TIA. We need a thorough parking analysis for large or simultaneous events. These aren't obstacles, they're opportunities to create a truly safe and walkable entertainment district. We're asking the Commission to require the developer to work with Cardinal Gibbons to address these critical pedestrian safety concerns. This ensures both the development success and our students' safety. The proposed entertainment district will transform this area. Let's make sure the transformation prioritizes the safety of pedestrians, especially our most vulnerable community members. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. The additional speaker has about 15 seconds. Would the commission like to give her an additional minute? We'll give you an additional minute, so you have a minute, 15 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, members of the Planning Commission.
Hold on, just 1 minute. Let us get the clock set properly. And who's keeping track of the time? I think that's 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Just state your name, please.
Lola Holderness. Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Lola Holderness, and I'm a senior at Cardinal Gibbons High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As students, we are excited about the new development across the street. Raleigh is growing, and we love being a part of such a vibrant and thriving city. We know that new businesses and developments bring opportunities and energy to the community, and we are proud to be in a place that values growth. But with growth comes responsibility. Responsibility to ensure that students and teachers can safely get to and from school each day. Right now, traffic congestion around Gibbons is already a challenge, and with this new project, it has the potential to become much worse. Every day, over 1,600 students and faculty members drive into our campus, many turning across multiple lanes of traffic, while others cross the street on foot. We are here early in the morning and we stay long after school ends for sports, theater productions, band concerts, service projects, and community events. Gibbons isn't just a school, it's a hub of activity, a place where students and family come together at all hours of day and night.
Thank you for your comments. If you would like to email the full comments to us, you can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have a total of 6 minutes and 15 seconds for the applicant and those in support to respond.
Good morning, Vice Chair Bennett, members of the commission. I'm Jamie Schwadler with Parker Poe here on behalf of the applicant, Pacific Elm Properties. We gave a very full and detailed presentation at your committee of the whole meeting, and with respect to your time, I don't want to repeat all of those items, but I would like to focus on why this project is important, how it's been years in the making, and why it's important to the city and the county that we stay on our timeline and continue to work with Cardinal Gibbons and other stakeholders that we've been working with throughout this time that we've been planning this project. I'd then focus on just the 2 items that this commission asked us to look into, and we have made updates to and are prepared to present today. While the zoning case began just earlier this year, this project began with an idea back in the 1990s when the stadium for the NC State men's basketball team was planned. And since that time, many parties and stakeholders have been working toward a new site, a new vision for the site that we've now been able to deliver with this final step in pursuing the entitlements. But that came after the detailed interlocal agreements that I explained, the timing components that are connected to that, which require us to submit our Phase 1 plan by the end of this year. And so while the zoning might seem like it's the first step, it's actually a culmination of a lot of work from many invested stakeholders in the city of Raleigh that want the same things that these students and the board does as well, as safe and productive new vision for this area. I'll turn now to the 2 items that the commission asked us to look into, which is providing a continuous bike connection throughout the campus, in addition to the connections off campus and in the larger area, and then an update on the TIA and traffic status. So the change that we made is highlighted here in purple on your screen. It's a new bike facility that would connect down from Trinity Road up to the proposed bike trail that we showed and talked about at length at the Committee of the Whole, shown in green green there, and then connecting further north as it travels up to Richland Creek. That's, of course, in addition to the extensive pedestrian and bicycle facilities we already discussed at Committee of the Whole, which are shown on the map in front of you in yellow, as well as the connections along Edwards Mill Road for the greenway that are shown in green. That micro addition on the site connects to a macro network, of course, throughout this area of Raleigh. And shown on the screen in green are the existing and proposed greenway facilities that we would be tying into, allowing folks to walk or bike to the campus in a safe manner, as well as existing sidewalks shown in yellow along Trinity Road, in close proximity to the Carter Finley Park and Ride, which is shown in the red star there on the right. And so in response to Commissioner Lampman's questions earlier, it not only fits into the micro, but then the larger, and then this kind of macro view of all of Western Raleigh with these connectivities and the existing investments of the city and county in greenway and bike facilities surrounding the area. With that, I'd like to give Nathan Romberg the remainder of the time to explain the traffic and traffic study and TIA status. Thank you.
Good morning. Nathan Romberg from Kimley Horn and Associates, an engineer of record for the TIA. I just wanted to give a kind of an update on kind of recent coordination efforts and kind of where we are with schedule. So that TI was submitted end of November. We've gotten the preliminary review comments from the city a few weeks ago. We've reviewed those with city transportation. Those comments didn't result in needing to go back and update analysis or make any significant revisions. It's just more kind of commentary to help with coordination. So the TI analyzed both, you've heard already about the frontage road that's proposed between Edwards Mill and Blue Ridge. And so that would close both the existing on-ramp from Edwards Mill to Wade Avenue and then the existing off-ramp from Wade Avenue to Blue Ridge. So the TI analyzed both with and without, because the TI determined that the frontage road is not, I want to make it clear that the frontage road is not necessary to support the rezoning. So the TI analyzed with and without frontage road. But we do believe the frontage road does significantly help with event operations and removing those from Edwards Mill Road. And so with the frontage road, the TI concluded that a reconfiguration of the existing Edwards Mill and Wade Avenue interchange would be necessary to accommodate kind of the shift in event traffic patterns. And so just sharing all this with the context of it's taking NCDOT time to respond to that. Normal TI is not proposing a modification to the control access freeway and interchange. So just kind of want to provide that insight of those are continuing conversations. NCDOT will continue to have a large say in kind of what that facility looks like long-term, and also, again, with city transportation. So we're continuing to talk with them. They are anticipating to respond formally later this month. They've asked for a little bit of extra information as far as seeing a concept of kind of a layout of what that would look like. So we should have official responses from them, but even within a final response from DOT, my expectation is this will be studied for many years, continues to evolve. There are certain improvements identified for both phase one and the full build out of the master plan. And I'm happy to answer questions of what those are, just under the context of we don't have a full final response from NCDOT or city transportation. Did I have one more slide? Go ahead, yeah. You can go ahead and jump back in. That's really the TI update. So.
Yeah. And so with that, just kind of talking again how that TIA and traffic study ties, of course, to the issues on our site, but also relates to the larger off-site improvements that we talked about at length at the Committee of the Whole. And then just finally to address some of the safety and crossing issues that were raised. We have been discussing those issues with Cardinal Gibbons as early as January of last year, and then again over the summer when they were pursuing different plans. We've also met on site with them and talked about different options that they could explore, and we fully intend on working with them together. So I don't think it's necessary for the Planning Commission to direct that. That's already occurring. And we're happy, of course, to continue those conversations, but would appreciate a vote out today so we can meet our obligations to both the city and the county. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to the table for commissioners' questions and comments. Commissioner Lampman?
I think I had a question for staff in the last meeting to outline the various infrastructure investments from all the constituents over a period of time. Apologies if I missed that.
So there are a series of improvement projects. And oh, shoot. I will hop back and forth on this map so I can show you where they are. So these are the major projects that are either funded or in the design phase, expected to, some of which are expected to be built out soon. So the first set of them are bicycle and pedestrian improvements along Blue Ridge Road as well as Edwards Mill Road. So the first set, and I'll point these out in a second, is a multi-use path along Blue Ridge, pedestrian bridge over 440 at Wade Avenue, and a protected intersection at Reedy Creek Road near the Museum of Art. That is up here on the upper right. And so the Edwards Mill and Wade, as well as Edwards Mill and Trinity Road improvements will be improved pedestrian crossings, pedestrian signals, as well as installing retroreflective backplates on signal heads and protected lanes. And those are both projects that are coordinated between the City of Raleigh's Vision Zero team as well as NCDOT. And as far as those improvements that are currently funded, the improvements at Edwards Mill and Wade are expected to be complete by between 2027 and 2028, whereas the ones on Edwards Mill and Trinity are expected to be finished either later this year or in 2026. There is also the Triangle Bikeway, which is the red line on this map. So that is a Campo project that's currently in the design phase, and it would provide a bicycle connection along I-40 and the NC-54 corridor. There are also improvements for I-440 and Blue Ridge Road, which is an NCDOT road project, which is currently under construction, which would widen I-440 to 6 lanes, upgrade intersections, and lower the grade of Blue Ridge Road. So there are also there's also a Wade Avenue road widening project by NCDOT, which is funded but in the preliminary engineering phase, which would add lanes on Wade Avenue between I-40 and I-440. So there's no ETA for that, as well as improvements to I-40 and NC-54, which would add lanes to the eastbound and westbound off-ramps, as well as ramp metering. So that is over here on the lower left-hand side of the screen. And then there's also the expected closure of the Barrel Road Railroad crossing, which is on the southeast portion of this map. And so construction for that and that closure is not expected to begin until 2029. There is also at least one transit project nearby, which would be upgrading the existing parking lot on District Drive, which would add spaces, improve lighting, and construct some bus shelters. So those are the major infrastructure-related projects that are occurring nearby. Yes. So the District Ride is, it says Go Triangle Park and Ride, because it's being done in conjunction with Go Triangle.
Thank you. That was a very nice representation of the upcoming projects. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Another just question regarding pedestrian access. This is more for the applicant team. I understand that I'm looking at, a staff presentation. I don't know if it's.
Commissioner Lampman, could you speak in your mic,
Yeah.
please? Thank you.
There is the Triangle Bikeway, and then there is a path, a pedestrian path. I'm looking on slide 21. There's a pedestrian circulation street and block plan. It's the one with the blue asterisk and the yellow asterisk, or the gray asterisk. It looks like that pedestrian path goes underneath Edwards Mill and then provides, it looks like safe walkable areas to the high school. Do you want to just kind of talk about what access looks like, and any infrastructure improvement that y'all are doing in that area. For assistance, yeah, if staff is helping, I'm on page 39 of the pedestrian circulation street and block plan page. At least it's 29 on our slides. Yeah. That looks right. Close, yeah. And safety for the students and any other infrastructure. I understand that you're kind of limited to your footprint, right? So,
right.
So let's talk about, kind of what the existing looks like and what you all are doing on your footprint. Because
Sure.
we have all these other activities that are coming up from other constituents, so.
Yes, definitely. So I'll start with highlighting the new connection across from existing Wade Park. So it'd be a new driveway connection there that comes with a signal upgrade. So you need to accommodate new vehicular movements, but that also means is all crosswalks are, striped out with signal push buttons.
Right.
So you're going to have kind of formal pedestrian crossings for all legs of that intersection once that kind of driveway ties in. That's state standard now, so that there's no kind of debate on whether that'll be there. That will be there once that driveway ties in. And then also looking at just generally, definitely exploring options for how to do a crossing kind of in the vicinity of Stevens Stroud. If we've had some conversations, it's just with it being DOT right away, we're only 500 feet from the signal at Trinity Road. The options are a little limited there, but there's definitely an intent to see if something can work to get people across kind of maybe mid-block. Something else just to consider is, if the frontage road's constructed, the reason Edwards Mill Road today is it's wide travel lanes, it's 45 miles an hour. Its intent is to move a lot of vehicles in a short amount of time. If a majority of event operations can be relocated from Edwards Mill to, Wade Avenue or in that area, I think there's an opportunity there to potentially maybe we can lower the speed limit on Edwards Mill Road. We can try to make that corridor kind of, a little more friendly to pedestrians, bicyclists than it is today. And continue to keep looking for those opportunities. But definitely would be, and there's already a crosswalk at Trinity Road in Edwards Mill today, and I know with the city-funded project, there'll be crosswalks with push buttons on all those approaches. So definitely we'll have crosswalks, push buttons, all approaches at Wade Park, all approaches at Trinity Road, and then continue to explore, potentially somewhere in the middle, but that obviously a little less known at this time.
Great. And then also, as part of your infrastructure design, you're enhancing the greenway and the walkability for connecting to trails.
Yeah, definitely trying to promote as much connectivity to the existing kind of greenway multi-use path infrastructure that's already there. And to
Okay, so
Yeah,
I'll just want to just kind of highlight that previously there was just that underpass for
That's right.
students to kind of get through, but now with this proposal, you're going to provide those walking pedestrian walkways with the push button to walk across.
Yes, for sure.
Side and related question, in designing some of the new access points, I've, been in the area during hockey games, et cetera. There's, the hired contract services that come in and help field, just out of curiosity, not really totally relevant, but did you connect with them to kind of talk with them about what their experiences are in terms of fielding traffic and any opportunities to, did this kind of does that help field a lot of that traffic needs?
Sure. I would say there's been preliminary conversation and just make sure folks are aware, the plans would cause a significant shift in how the site is parked. How it kind of operates today is, I would say just, this is my own professional opinion, it's a little less efficient. So everything's general parking. Everyone rushes to the Edwards Mill entrance first as that gets, because, you've got all the parking on that side, and then as that kind of fills up, they kind of shift people over to West Chase. You can park there throughout the entire time. So with majority of event parking kind of shifting north and east, it's just not going to be, it's going to be very challenging to work event operations off of Edwards Mill Road in the future with the district there, right? So we've had some preliminary conversations just, especially with the frontage road, if that's put in place, how can we best maximize its use? Talking with kind of the existing event operations and see what they think. But I'd just say preliminary.
Because Raleigh PD also engages in that process as well, right?
They would at some level, yes, helping with implementation. Yeah, so you would have, kind of the venue itself would set their event traffic plans, and then there'd be coordination with local law enforcement to make sure the plans were implemented appropriately.
Okay. And then I surmise that with the with the new crosswalks and the push buttons, that will also help funnel traffic and foot traffic.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wouldn't say I know 1,000% because
Sure.
I can't see in the future, but I would be shocked if there aren't in some level of traffic control measures still along Edwards Mill, even if it's not a major
Right.
event traffic corridor anymore.
Right.
Facilitating the movement of pedestrians across the road before events, I think, is always going to be something really important to do.
Good. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about both during events and then also during regular periods. Thank
Yep,
you.
of course.
Commissioner Fox?
I just wanted to follow up on what item to make sure I'm entirely clear on it. There was a mention from the Cardinal Gibbons representative about a desire for something like a pedestrian bridge. To be clear, something like that would require NCDOT.
100% yes.
Okay, and
Yeah.
none of those people are here right now. Just
That's correct.
acknowledging that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Jamie would like to follow
Yeah.
up.
If I may address that, and more importantly, not only are they not here, they're actively reviewing all of these things, and that's their purview, right? They are the experts, along with your City of Transportation, to evaluate all of these things: the pedestrian safety, the event traffic, and things that we've submitted in the study, and it's going through that normal course. And so, I just, for the public's sake, I don't want anyone to think that they're not here and that it's not being looked at. It is. It's going on in the procedures that the city and the state have in the background, and it'll continue to go on through this case and through our site plan submittal, our ASR, that we're again required to submit, is actually already underway. So all of that's being done. It's just not all being done in the zoning case, but it's being looked at by the experts.
Thank you for that. With that, Chair Bennett, then I'd add, I'm not finding any inconsistencies with adopted policies or plans at this point, so I'm ready to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Thank you. And I'll just add that with regard to any type of pedestrian bridge, something that would require NCDOT coordination isn't something that can be handled in a zoning condition at this table. So I just want to make that clear. We're not addressing it, but it would involve coordination with the state. And we can't obligate the city to enforce a state action. So with that, I'll ask if there are any additional questions or comments. Commissioner Otwell.
Thank you, Chair Bennett. I'd like to thank the applicant for their attention to the additional bicycle infrastructure. I really appreciate that effort. I think that it's pretty obvious that when there's going to be events going on, that it will be a special traffic situation, and bike lanes all through the area are going to be swamped with people walking, and it's not going to be a feasible sort of situation. And when there's no events going on, this will function as a multi-use development, and the sidewalks and the streets will function adequately for that kind of work. I think that this development will spur the standard crossing safety and pedestrian infrastructure that we get with our modern developments, which is a huge step forward in regard to safety and transit. I wish we could have more attention to the urban form or more guarantees about the urban form, but I understand the unique nature of this development and its situation and its detachment from any other urban form in Raleigh. And I think that, too, I'm failing to find any inconsistencies in this request, and I'm ready to move forward with Commissioner Fox.
Thank you, Commissioner Otwell. Commissioner Peeler?
Yeah. Just a couple quick things. One, I had a question about, one, thank you for adding the Cycle Connect to Trinity there. I do, and I know this isn't in the applicant's purview because this is Trinity Road, which doesn't border into this, but I do want to point out that I think when people do cycle to this, they will almost all come down Trinity Road from Hillsborough Street because that's where most of the density is. And I'm not sure, while that's a great access point, I'm not sure if it solves anything in the short term because there's just one small sidewalk that goes down Trinity Road. So whether it's students or people coming from downtown or most of the urban centers around here, I think you're still going to have a problem with connectivity through there. Also, I understand it's not in the applicant's purview to add, Go Triangle or Go Raleigh service to here. I would have really liked to see some public transit connectivity in terms of stops, in terms of infrastructure that would spur future connectivity to the BRT or any kind of bus line towards downtown or campus, which we do not currently have to this large site that has many, many events for the city. One more thing I wanted to point out in the inconsistencies were public gathering spaces, and I just wondered if the applicant could speak to the lack of those and why that was inconsistent in the comp plan. Because I think with adding so much residential density to this, having consistent public gathering spaces would be really crucial, since people would be living there outside of event times.
Thank you for the question. Aaron Locke, Pacific Elm Properties. With regard to public open space, I want to point out firstly that in our development agreement, we were required to provide 5 acres of public open space for tailgating for NC State. That's located largely around the arena, between the arena and the stadium, as well as on the west side of the site. There's approximately about 10 acres of open space through the Richland Creek area. You can see that green line kind of tracing around it. We envision that to be kind of a quarter-mile multimodal path through that forested area that will hopefully be accessible. Obviously, the creek is there, and the existing Richland Creek Trail. So we see that as our kind of our open space that's more forested. We're, of course, going to have plazas and parks within the urban area as well. Those will be probably a smaller scale, more of an urban form park as opposed to more of a traditional, like large-scale park area.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you can also answer this. I mean, as far as I understand, there's a new bike connection from Trinity where that purple line is. But as far as cycling connections that are cycling specific throughout the property, those are still not added, right? It's still just sidewalks, as is where the dotted yellow lines are within this map.
We're looking to get bikes to the core of the development, and we thought, where will people be riding and when? Our anticipation is that people will want to go to the core of the district, and that's where we wanted to provide that access. And so you see the green lines connecting to the potential Triangle Bikeway will connect to the core of and where the core of our open space is. And we saw it as a good point that we didn't have a connection currently from Trinity, hence why we connected as you see there in the purple line, to what we would consider the kind of the hub of the district.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Peel, if I could just answer one more question. I don't want to speak for Mr. Burns, but I do believe that when you're looking at the inconsistencies of what the code would require, because this is state-owned land, there won't be publicly dedicated open space, just like the roadway discussion we had at Committee of the Whole. But there will be public spaces to comply with the development agreement. And of course, we envision many public open spaces that will be held with likely public access easements.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, just to that, thank you for that. I mean, was there any reasoning for not adding any kind of future bus infrastructure for a Go Raleigh or Go Triangle route that could serve here coming from the airport, coming from Durham, coming from Chapel Hill, coming from downtown Raleigh?
Transportation and transit are long-term plans, and so what we need to do is make sure we're listening to the input of the agencies that are somewhat regional and what their input is, and we won't want to restrict that by saying it will go in one place or the other and obligate them before they have a chance to make their own policy. So we'll continue to work with those entities and be happy to continue that conversation throughout the development, but didn't feel it was appropriate for a commitment at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Otwell.
Sorry
okay.
to keep dragging it out. I wanted to thank the students from Cardinal Gibbons for coming out. I appreciate the passion. I mean, I think engagement is really important. I know it's not easy to get out here. It's an inconvenience and hard to get out of school, and this is not how most high school students like to spend their free time. I encourage you to stay engaged. This is not the last opportunity for public engagement here. This will be before council, and there'll be opportunities there, and I encourage you especially to engage with NCDOT, because they're going to be making a lot of the important decisions that are going to affect your lives. So thank you, and I appreciate y'all coming out here.
Yes, I echo Commissioner Otwell's comments. I was going to say that before we did the motion, but thank you for coming out. And to the speaker who wasn't able to finish your comments, please email them to us, because I would like to see everything you had to say. You can also email City Council when they're going to hear this as well, and you can go to that public hearing and speak as well So thank you so much for showing up. With that, I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Fox.
Before the motion, I just wanted to acknowledge, I appreciate the applicant's willingness to continue coordination with NCDOT and Cardinal Gibbons, because I do acknowledge some of the concerns that they have regarding pedestrian safety. And for the motion, I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated February 11th, 2025, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning amendment.
Second. That's me, second. Sorry, I'm running this right. We have a motion by Commissioner Fox and a second by Commissioner Bennett. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. With that, we will bring back Chair Miller and Commissioner Raines, and I'll hand it back over to Chair Miller.
While we are between cases for just a moment, I think Commissioner Fox has one additional note.
Yeah, as I discussed with Commissioner Bennett and Chair Miller, I need to excuse myself before the end of the meeting today for a work obligation. So I apologize at that moment. I will get up and excuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll give us just one more moment to settle. Thank you to everyone who turned out for the last item. Moving on to old business, there is one item on the agenda today. For this item, the Commission has already received a full staff presentation, applicant presentation, and heard from the public. So our focus today will be on any updates or changes to the case since our last meeting. That old business item is rezoning case Z4524 at 7015 and 7019 Litchford Road. This case is to change approximately 0.88 acres from R4 to R6 with conditions. Again, we heard this item in our January 28th meeting, and we deferred action until this meeting to allow the applicant time to consider revisions. So I will now turn to Matthew Clem for a presentation from on any updates to the case since our last meeting.
Yep. Good morning. Thank you for the introduction. Yep. So your deadline for action here is March 29th. Rezoning request on Litchford Road going from R4 to R6 with zoning conditions. This slide summarizes the changes in conditions from when you last discussed the case. Condition number 3 is mostly intact from the original offering of zoning conditions. This was added. 80% of the materials cladding any project under the proposed zoning will have to follow condition number 3. Condition number 1 and 2 were added from your last discussion, capping development at 8 units per acre, not including ADUs, and then another condition regarding planting and screening along the southern lot line. So this is the change in entitlement. So the existing entitlement for R4 is 8 units, and the proposed entitlement with the added zoning condition is also 8. And you can see the change in the setbacks as well. Those are the updates to the case, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. We have already heard from the applicant and the public, but just so I can get a sense by show of hands, would the applicant or any members of the public like to provide any additional comments on updates to the case? Then, seeing none, we can bring it back to the table for any additional discussion. Any commissioners with questions? Yes, Commissioner Otwell.
Thank you, Chair Miller. In general, I don't really like seeing conditions for the planting of specific trees. I think that's better left up to the property owners and the code that we have in place, but I don't see any inconsistencies with this request, and I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Then I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Vice Chair Bennett.
I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated February 11th, 2025, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning amendment.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner McCrimmon has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thanks very much. How many do we have now? 8. And now moving on to new business. We have 2 items on the agenda today. For these items, we will hear a full staff presentation and comments from the public. The first item is rezoning case Z4624 at 4349 and 4353 Pearl Road. This case is to change approximately 3.82 acres from R10 with conditions to R10 with other conditions.
I just wanted to take a minute to introduce what is probably a new face to you, Matthew McGregor, who's been working with the city for some time now, but is new to you, and we're happy to hear his first presentation today.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome to Matthew McGregor. We're glad to have you here, and we will turn to you for a presentation on this case.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Bynum. Yes, my name is Matt McGregor. I'm here to talk on case Z4624, 4349, and 4353 Pearl Road. So the request is to rezone 3.82 acres from a pre-existing R10 CU district to a new R10 CU district. I want to clarify that this is not a text change. This is just a rezoning case because it's not taking the entire existing R10 CU district. It is creating a new one. Planning Commission deadline for action is April 12th, 2025. Zoning in the area is predominantly residential. The surrounding zoning is R4, R6, and R10. This is a look at the site. It's got a couple churches surrounding it. It's also surrounded by low-scale residential with townhomes to the west, and there is a future Pearl Road Park in the southeast and a private open space corridor to the north. I would also like to highlight the Ivy Bridge Lane stub right there and the Prentice Curry Way stub right there. Another look at the site. Here are 3 views of the site from different angles. The first view is a west-northwest facing view on Pearl Road. The second view is south facing at the Ivy Bridge Lane stub that I previously pointed out. And the third view is the east facing view at Princess Curry Lane stub, which I also previously pointed out. So I wanted to put a summary of existing conditions slide in here just to show that these are all going away. But I wanted to point out condition 2 on this that states that gross density will be limited to 6 dwelling units per acre because that will change the entitlement. The entitlement of the site is changing with the proposed conditions. Here is a summary of the proposed conditions. The first condition prohibits principal uses that are normally allowed in R10 districts. The second condition states that an apartment building type may not include dwelling units that are separated by a horizontal party wall. This shall not prohibit a dwelling unit from having multiple stories. So think more of like a row home or a townhome when thinking of this. After this slide, I have a couple of examples that show kind of just what we're talking about because the case after mine, Z49, is also on Pearl Road and they have the same condition. So we just figured we'd get it out of the way so you understand a little bit better. And then the third condition limits residential entitlement to 40 dwelling units. So here is an example of a apartment building type that would be that is not allowed under Condition 2, it is stacked unit. It is separated by a horizontal party wall. This is off of Rock Quarry Road, close to the site. Here is an example of an apartment building that would be allowed under Condition 2. It's separated by a vertical party wall. This is close to 5 Points. And here's another example, just, so you guys get an understanding of what condition 2 is stating. Existing zoning, as previously stated, is R10CU. The acreage is 3.82 acres. Maximum units allowed is 22 because of the 6 units per acre that are allowed. 3.82 times 6 gets you around 22. Setbacks are standard for R10. The proposed zoning is staying the same, R10, but the residential entitlement is limited by zoning condition 3, and maximum units are 40, and the setbacks are staying the same. The site has a lower walk score than average. No transit score was provided. It has a lower bike score than average. It has an average transportation cost index, and it has a slightly higher job proximity than average. The nearest bus service route is Route 17 off of Rock Quarry Road, about 0.6 or 0.7 miles away. I want to emphasize that this request is mainly intended to add to the housing supply, which it does. It does not include subsidized units. It permits a variety of housing types. Smaller units are allowed, smaller lots than the citywide average are allowed, and it is not within walking distance of transit. The area is more racially diverse than the citywide average, around 70% compared to the citywide average of 46%. A lower percentage of low-income residents live in the area compared to the Raleigh's average, 22 compared to the citywide average of 29. Median gross rent in the area has risen 41% since 2016, more than the Raleigh average of around 25%. The requested R10CU designation is consistent with the low-scale residential designation on the future land use map. And also, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And again, to reiterate, it is consistent with the future land use map. Here are a list of consistent policies I found. A lot of these policies are pertaining to housing supply, infill, and housing variety. Another, more consistent policies. And the only inconsistent policy I could find was CS 4.4, response time standards. I do not have any outstanding issues. Deadline for action is April 12th, 2025, and here are a list of upcoming meetings. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We will now turn to public comment. For those in support, the applicant and those in favor have a total of 10 minutes to speak.
All right, thank you to Matt. That was a great presentation. My name's Worth Mills, here on behalf of the rezoning applicant. Matt covered pretty much everything that I had in this presentation. So again, I'll reiterate that the case is consistent with the future land use map, the comprehensive plan, the applicable policies, but for the fire response times. I can give a little background on the stacked unit prohibition condition in, excuse me, in previous developments when we get to subdivision or site plan stage, we've had scenarios where a townhouse building that was not, a townhouse building where each individual unit was not platted on its own lot was considered an apartment building per the UDO. So what what I like to do for cases like this is essentially prohibit stacked units where it allows the property owner developer to subdivide a future townhouse project where, you know, multiple units will be on the same lot, but it does not qualify as an apartment building, or it qualifies as an apartment building, but for anybody who's walking down the street or driving down the street, it will appear as a typical townhouse subdivision. But again, happy to answer any questions that you have and appreciate the time this morning. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in support of this project? And seeing none, we'll move on to public comment for those in opposition. Those opposed to this case have a total of 10 minutes to speak. Please come to the podium. And seeing none, we can bring it back to the table for discussion for any questions from commissioners. Commissioner Otwell.
I have a question for Mr. Mills. I'm still trying to understand the prohibition on the stacked units. So are you saying that this clears up what could be a problematic policy that would keep the developer from having the flexibility that they need? Or could you go a little bit further into that for me, please?
Sure. And I'll just go to the zoning conditions page. So sometimes when we're rezoning to R10 and we're adjacent to existing townhouses or single-family subdivisions, we like to assure folks that, we're not going to be building an apartment building or an apartment complex next door. But at the same time, I don't want to prohibit the apartment building if we run into an interpretation at the subdivision or site plan level where multiple townhouse units on one lot are classified as, multifamily living or an apartment building. So I'd had some email exchanges with Matt early on when I think during the initial kind of review period for staff, just to explain my rationale, but it really is meant to ensure that neighbors are not going to have a, multi-level, multi-living, multifamily unit development nearby.
Thank you.
For the record, I don't see any detriment to the public, any difference either way. So happy to support this as it is, though.
Other questions and comments? Then seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Commissioner Fox.
In regards to case Z4624, I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated February 11th, 2025, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning amendment.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Otwell has seconded. Any further discussion? By show of hands, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously 8-0. Thanks, everyone. And now moving just down the road to our next rezoning case, item Z4924 at 3716 and 3800 Pearl Road. This case is to change approximately 4.43 acres from R4 to R10 with conditions. And we'll turn back to Matthew Clem for a presentation from city planning staff.
Good morning again. Thank you. Thanks for the intro there. Again, 4.43 acres going from R4 to R10. Your deadline for action is April 12th. Similarly to the last case, the site is surrounded by residential development. Just northwest of the site, up Rock Quarry Road, you begin to see some neighborhood mixed use. Just beyond that is Old Town, the large planned development that includes a range of housing types, detached, attached apartments and towns. That site also includes plans for future commercial uses, including a grocery store. Similarly, farther east, down Rock Quarry Road, about a mile, is the Battle Bridge Shopping Center that includes a food line and other personal service and retail uses as well. Here is a zoomed out view of the site. You can see that it is surrounded by residential developments of varying scales. And then here is Battle Bridge, and here is Old Town. A view from Rock Quarry Road to some adjacent apartment homes at the intersection of Rock Quarry and Pearl. This is an age-restricted facility. Here is the site itself. It's currently developed with a single house and various sheds and outbuildings as well. Looking north on Pearl Road, the site is to the left. You see that it's wooded and sloped towards the back of the site, and these are the apartments across the street. Two zoning conditions here, one prohibiting a list of uses, the other containing the same restriction on stacked units. Matt did a great job with these slides. So again, stacked units in this fashion with the horizontal, well, that's not working. Horizontal party wall, horizontal party wall is prohibited. Something like this, a single unit, vertically stacked, however, sharing One lot is permitted, and then what you might expect as a typical townhouse development, one unit, one lot with shared walls. So the increase of entitlement is shown here, and reductions of front, side, and rear setbacks. Similarly to the other site, the walk score and transit score are on average with the city. There's a lower bike score. Transportation cost index is lower than, we don't have a city average. It's a more of a location based, so just comparing it to downtown for transportation and job proximity, lower than the city's core. This is looking at bus service in the area. The rezoning site is here, so closer walking distance to bus service than Z46, adding to housing supply, not including subsidized units, and providing the full range of housing permitted in our code. This information is also the same from the previous case, so higher demographic index compared to the city, a lower low-income population, higher change in median rents. There are also several subdivisions surrounding the site that have various restrictive covenants that require detached housing, prohibit further subdivisions, and have architectural review requirements amongst them. But most of the surrounding subdivisions have a list of restrictive covenants that would otherwise restrict development of those sites compared to the city's code. So the request is consistent with low-scale residential, three-story building in a residential context and residential scale. There is frontage on Rock Quarry Road, which might suggest a urban frontage. With the R10 zoning, our code doesn't allow an attachment of an urban frontage. Also, and I believe Worth has this in his slides, there is a Pearl Road project that will add sidewalks and other improvements to the street and include a realignment of Pearl Road to line up with Barwell Road. That transaction will also sever the site's adjacency or frontage on Rock Quarry Road as well. Consistent with the plan and future land use map, here are your consistent policies, again, supporting more housing in a residential context. And there are no outstanding issues. These are your next meetings.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now moving on to public comment. For those in support, the applicant and those in favor will have a total of 10 minutes to speak.
You're welcome.
Thanks to Matt for that presentation. I will keep my comments brief. Worth Mills here on behalf of the rezoning applicant. Just looking at the site, again, it's not shown on IMAPs here, but that's the Evergreen Aspen Springs Senior Apartments on the other side of Pearl Road, and then we have Pearl Ridge subdivision to our west. So from a land planning perspective, just increasing the land entitlement and density from the Pearl Ridge single-family subdivision until you get to the Evergreen Aspen Spring apartment complex. So general density increases. We think that's a real positive thing for this site. I will touch on this slide as well. This is a Pearl Road or a Pearl Ridge subdivision plat from 2000. You can see the orange star is the subject rezoning property, and the blue lines there are within our property boundary, and they indicate the extent of the Neuse River buffer that is present on our site. And so this was a big selling point for the neighbors on Grandover Drive, where we can say that we've got a built-in, permanently undisturbed buffer between this project and their backyards via that Neuse River buffer. And then I did want to touch on the Pearl Road realignment. So this stretch of Pearl Road is included within the city's Barwell Road Improvement Project, which is, I think, expected to begin construction. They've already started clearing trees on the sides of the right-of-way, but the last I heard from the city is construction will start this spring, and they're still hoping to complete that sometime in 2026. But you can see the new alignment for Pearl Road will tee up with the Barwell Road and Rock Quarry Road extension to create just your typical four-way intersection. If you've ever gone out to the Barwell Road Community Center or to the school out there, you know kind of how awkward those two intersections can be. So that will be a really big benefit, not only for this site, but for really everybody in the area that has to navigate Rock Quarry. And then you can see some of the schematics from the Barwell Road project. Our site is denoted by the blue star, and then in the bottom left-hand corner shows the typical roadway section, two-lane divided with a 6-foot sidewalk on one side and a 10-foot multi-use path on the other. This slide just is meant to show that the city has purchased a portion of this property, or at least right-of-way easements for this property already. The extent of the right-of-way easement shown in orange, and then the edge of the temporary construction easements shown in green. Rock Quarry Road runs right there, just to give you a little bit of a bearing. But as Matt mentioned, the case is consistent with the future land use map, the comprehensive plan, creating general density increases from a single-family subdivision to a senior living multifamily project. So we think this satisfies a lot of good land planning policies, but happy to answer any questions that you have this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in support of this project? Then, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment for those in opposition. Those opposed to this case have a total of 10 minutes to speak. Please come to the podium. And seeing none, we can bring it to public comment. Any commissioners would like to kick us off? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
In regards to case Z4924, I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated February 11, 2025, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning amendment.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Otwell has seconded. Any further discussion? By show of hands, all those in favor? Any opposed? That also passes unanimously 8-0. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who attended. Moving on to approval of the minutes, we have 2 batches of minutes. Are there any comments to the minutes today? Yes, Vice Chair Bennett.
Let me get them up. It's here. Sorry, I'm trying to pull things up. Not to the Committee of the Whole minutes, but the Planning Commission minutes. So sorry. My comment was, I think one of them didn't explain the nay votes. I'm trying to find it. Here we go. On page 3, where it says the vote was not unanimous, 4-3, Bennett, O'Haver, and Peeler were opposed. It explains Peeler and O'Haver's opposition prior to the vote, but mine isn't explained, and I did state it on the record. So I was opposed because of concerns with blending in with the surrounding community.
Thank you.
And further down on the same page, under agenda item D2, the first bolded part where it says Vice Chair Bennett has asked to be, the word recused was just omitted.
Okay.
That was all I had.
Thank you. Any additional comments to the minutes? I will make a motion to approve the minutes with those 2 changes. I have a second from Commissioner McCrimmon. Any further discussion? By show of hands, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And moving on to other business. First item, report of the chair. I first just wanted to acknowledge Vice Chair Bennett and her recent work chairing both the previous Planning Commission meeting and this Lenovo Center item for 2 additional meetings, and to thank you for your work on those items. It was well done, and it is a joy to chair a commission where we have a very deep bench of talent on which we all can rely and consistently, so thank you. And in that same vein, we also have many vacancies coming up this year and throughout the next fiscal year. Over the next 14 months, we will lose at least 7 of our 10 commissioners due to expiring terms and other voluntary personal and professional changes. As you all know well, the Planning Commission is an enormous labor of love for public service. At the City Council meeting last week, Council asked if I had any ideas for what type of commissioners that they were looking for. And I answered that first, one of the things that's worked really well here for us, I think, is the very diverse set of both viewpoints and then also skills on which all of us can consistently rely to speak to that expertise, and then also defer to those experts on those items. So we don't all have to know everything about every case. And so that dynamic itself is as important as the people that, certain expertise that's sitting in that chair. What I touched on also is that what has historically not worked well is when there's a lot of groupthink and people that can't see both sides of the issue. That's kind of the most critical ability, I think, is just the ability to see both sides, because these are nuanced and complicated cases with competing interests every single time. So the other items that I added when they said, so who should we appoint? So I said some of the criteria was the threshold of time and availability capacity with also a clear understanding of the time requirements. I know that when I was appointed, I didn't fully appreciate what that was going to mean, so just making sure that was handled fully and upfront. The other items I added were experience in housing and development in general at all income levels and housing types, understanding housing affordability and attainability, and the need for sufficient market supply at diverse income levels and housing types. In terms of specific professional backgrounds, builders and developers for both large traditional developments, but then also micro developments has worked well in the past. Those in real estate finance and real estate agents or brokers in particular, and focusing on a soft skill set of someone who can communicate complex development issues to the public at large. So those that work in more public-facing roles and with our customers and at the public on a regular basis. We also obviously need those with experience on architecture. Those have been critical to our text changes and to explaining issues about which I have no specific expertise, and I rely on our architects significantly. And then also, as the only attorney, I'll be rolling off this year as well, looking at attorneys, someone to fill that gap as well. And if there are others that we're looking for also, I only had a very brief heads up that I was going to be asked just a few minutes, so I was trying to frantically just type on my phone. But if others have thoughts on any of that they want to add to council, I'm sure they would appreciate that. And in the meantime, if you have other thoughts on specific people that might fit any of those or other important criteria, we would very much, council would very much appreciate those as well. So that is my report of the chair. Moving down the line.
Thank you. Chair Miller, I'd like to put in a plug for the planners on the Planning Commission. So we have a nice understanding of, I guess, the macro view of how it all comes together, and that's really important. I have enjoyed the diversity of professions on the commission, though, because I've learned a lot from the architects, especially, and just about the development process in general. I want to underscore that people need to be aware of the time commitment, though, because there is a significant time commitment. And it should be someone who, in my opinion, is passionate about what they stand for. I've been praised and I've been criticized for my passion on the Planning Commission, but it makes me who I am. And I think it's important to have someone here who is able to hear other views, respect other views, but can stand firm in who they are and what they bring to the table. And while I have the overall planning picture in mind, and I certainly understand how it all comes together, and I appreciate how it all comes together, I've stood firm in my commitment for equity, environmental justice, and community engagement. So I put in a plug for someone who can represent those views on the commission as well, because sometimes we can get lost in the technical aspect of it, and we need to always remember that it's about people. I mean, what we see on the screen, the maps, that's very important to understand, and it's really important to understand the technical. But we're doing this for people. It's about people. Each rezoning case represents people, and so someone who can keep the people in mind while also focusing on all the technical, I think would be a great addition to the Planning Commission. With that, our next Committee of the Whole meeting is February 27th, but I don't see that we have any discussion items, so will that be canceled?
I don't think we are expecting any items, and we can cancel that.
Okay, so there will be no Committee of the Whole meeting this month. And I will move it down the line.
I'll just also say thank you for those excellent comments. I was laughing to myself because you and I think, make such a good team in the ways that you and I foil each other.
I think so, yes, we definitely do.
I very much appreciate it.
I appreciate how we have grown
Yes.
and been able to have our conversations and learn from each other.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett and Chair Miller, I think that y'all summed it up great. And so I think that those recommendations to council are right on target and echo a lot of my feelings. So I'll just leave that on the record. I'll say that it's been humbling to work with this group of people. It's been one of the greatest honors of my life to be with such a talented and passionate group of people. I've learned so much, and it's kind of intimidating that Commissioner McCrimmon and Peeler and I are going to have to carry this on if I'm doing the math right. It'll be the three of us will be the veterans here in about 14 months. So we'll do our best to keep up the standards. It's going to be hard. With that, we have a text change committee meeting. It will be coming up on February, let me see, I make this right, read the right one this time, on February 19th at 4 p.m. And it looks like we're going to be in OEP in room 809. So I guess that's one Exchange Plaza. We will not be here. We will be down the road and up in the building. So don't show up at the wrong spot. And items yet to be determined, but we're going to have something. So look forward to seeing everyone there.
Commissioner Miller, thank you for your comments about kind of the requirements of the planning department or the planning commission and those commitments. And just to echo that this has been a very rewarding experience. I'm about ready to hit send on my own resignation. And your comments there was very touching. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you so much for serving for 3 terms, and we will miss you, and thank you, and wish you just the best of luck. I don't know how much I'm allowed to share, but where you're going, we'll be so lucky to have you. So thank you for your service. Well, we have you for one more meeting, right? Okay, perfect.
Maybe 2 if we meet again on the 28th. I can't remember. We're not going to have the cow. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll keep my comments short, but I echo everyone's comments about what we're looking for in a balance of a commission. I think that's been amazing to see the experience and diversity of experience and expertise we have on this commission. The thoughtful comments, commentary, opinions, passion, I think is all of that is important for positive development of this amazing community. So I'm honored also to have been part of this commission. I have requested to roll off, and it's my understanding March is the date. I'm not sure, the first meeting or second meeting, that's to be determined.
Well, the expectation is that you serve until your appointment, your replacement is appointed. Yeah.
Yep, so
Michael, we could keep him on for a while.
Well, sometimes if council is slow, that can be a real thing.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Hotel
So I could be here
California.
through summer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll stick around as long as you'll have me. So, moving on to the Infrastructure and Mobility Committee, there are no discussions pending, so the February 20th meeting is canceled.
No, thank you both for that, and I echo a lot of that. You know, coming on this commission when I did, I had very little development experience. You know, my experience was in like political and tenant work, and I've learned so much about architecture, development, all that stuff while being here. So I appreciate all of you with these diverse backgrounds teaching me a lot. But you know, my plug for future commissioners is that you have the passion to do it more than you have the technical background, because I really wanted to serve here, but maybe didn't have a lot of the on paper, on my resume, you know, qualifications, but people took a chance on me, and I hope I've served it well so far and continue to keep doing so. Things I'd love to see, though, too, and I've put my plug in, is I'd love to see someone with public transit background. We talk a lot about that here. It's in every case. It's a huge part of our comp plan. It will hopefully be a bigger part of our future comp plan, and I'd love to see someone with a true background in that understands the nitty-gritty of getting new public transit set up on this commission, because I think it's a major element, key element of new development for Raleigh. I'd love to see another voice for environmental justice. You've been a great one, Commissioner Bennett, but I think that's a key element of what we do. Also, I've noticed how much we lean on the stormwater department in a lot of our cases, and I think someone with a stormwater background would be really excellent. And then also finally, you know, where I come from too, someone with a background in tenant issues, I think is huge, being that so much of what we do, especially multifamily, is rental only. And I think that's really important to talk about more at this table. But it's been great serving with the two of you and everyone else who's going to roll off this year. But I know y'all are the most immediate ones that are here today that I think are leaving. So it's been great serving with you, and no other report. Thanks.
Thank you.
We all know I like to keep it short and sweet, so not to belabor the point. This has been a good ride and learn a lot about our city and what we do and making sure housing is available. I think I just add one more point. Someone's very politically astute to the list of qualifications. And when I say that, I do not have a developer background, architectural background. I had to learn what frontage was. So, but I am appreciative of all the knowledge that I have learned from you and what we're all doing for our city. Yes, this is a huge time commitment. And so I'm just ensuring that people understand what they're signing up for. But for me and my background as coming from the state government, federal government, understanding how government works and how they all work together and connectivity that we all have to do. We saw earlier today with the Lenovo Center and understanding the different roles and how this commission fits within that process. Because sometimes we can ask for things that are not really within our sphere of authority. And so that is where my political astute comment comes from. So I just want to make sure that whomever we start to add to the commission understands what our lane is. So with that being said, thank you everyone for your service. We truly appreciate it. And I have no other comments. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I heard so many good items that, again, I was working fast to come up with a list. My inclination isn't to the technical, but you made, all of those are excellent points, and they're holes that I absolutely missed. And I will add those as well. I'll also recognize that I did not have any development background myself. So if we're looking for an attorney, some kind of land use attorney would be great. And in that same, what's that?
I know one that's free.
Yeah, well, exactly. We were trying to get them back up here. And yes, to that good point, how government works and understanding public meetings and the analysis of understanding the consequences and unintended consequences of what we are working on is critical. That's largely what I have also brought to the table here as opposed to the technical expertise. So thank you very much for those comments. I'll make sure to supplement that for our for council at our next meeting. And moving on to the report from our Assistant Director.
I wanted to say two things. One, Mr. Raines, your term ends on March 7th.
7th, okay.
Yeah, which is before the first meeting in March, but I'm guessing you're probably going to be here for the first meeting in March. I don't think, I'm not, it's not clear to me if you're going to be on the agenda next week to be on the council agenda next week or not. So I don't, yeah. And then I wanted to ask if strategic planning is planning to meet this week or not. I wasn't really expecting you to, but then the committee chair left.
I also was not expecting to, but
Okay, great. So let's just say out loud, the strategic planning committee will not meet this week.
great.
Thank you. That was my one outstanding question.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good note. Any other items for the good of the commission? Then with that, 9:34, we're adjourned. Thank you. 10:34.